This is my third video that I am recording today. I'm knocking them out. I'm telling you. I had to record this video today because this has been a long time coming. Shout out to Musical Wordsmith for recommending me Melt My Eyes because man, I am ashamed at the fact that I've never heard this album until this was recommended to me. I've listened to it like 4 times since I've heard it, and I feel like I've been missing out. I feel like this album used neo soul as an emotional language. The production itself, I thought, was lifting a lot in terms of emotional labor. And then you pair that with Denzel and his voice and the lyrics, it just all made it feel like a therapy session, but in a good way. And then that blend of neo soul with the jazz rap and the live instrumentation, especially towards the end of the album, give a lot of softness to the project. There's warm bass lines, there's loose drums, and keys that just breathe and bring a lot of life to the project. And in comparison to Taboo, I feel like there's not a lot of urgency and not as much chaos. Everything here in this project I felt was very intentional and grounded. And the first track, Melt Session number 1, sets that tone immediately. In the panning on Melt Session, why am I doing this? Because this is panning, apparently. But that, with the soft keys, help with the mood. And it feels really soulful, especially with the drums. But the lyrics are really sad to me. And it's reflective of the things that he's been through in terms of love, pain, ex-friends, accountability, and perseverance. I gotta take a moment though, because I have to focus on the song Walkin. Please. Okay, please. I have to say 1 gajillion% Walkin is an album highlight for me. It feels really old school rap. The beat switch just, I think, mirrored like a mental shift, if that makes sense. And it's one of my favorite moments in the entire project. I think so far, it's definitely one of my favorite Denzel songs that I've heard. It's that song. It's that song. Like, how else do I put it? It's that song. And I didn't notice at first, through my first few listens, the actual sound of walking at the start of the song. But the way he raps over these older, like old school type of beats make the song feel complete. It's just like his rapping fits the production like a glove. And there's some lines that I really enjoy, like life isn't ice cream without monopoly dough. They ready to set us up for failure. It's systematic. And in this one in particular, it seems like Denzel is taking on and talking about the issues that those who are really going through it, and kind of like I feel you on that level when it comes to things like money and the system that we are dealing with. And him alluding to therapy and talking about these emotions he's feeling is great to spotlight, because all of these things affect us whether we see it right under our noses or not. And the lyrics, when I say these things, are mainly like systemic pressure, survival, accountability, and perseverance again. And there's also money and generational weight. But I do feel that sense of like survival without glorifying struggling, harming yourself to get to a certain point. So this song can sound motivational or really exhausting, to be honest. And I like that it feels like healing is sitting somewhere in the middle between both of those things. But again, Walkin' is just that song. There's also a lot of accountability in this album over anger, I feel. There's a lot of reflection over retaliation, whether that be towards the community, friends, himself too, because he's facing these things head on in the album. And Denzel talks about those failed relationships and friendships and internal demons and emotional responsibility. And it's not all finger pointing, everybody's the problem and I'm not the problem. But it's also acknowledging that I am in this mess too. An example of that to me is in Worst Comes to Worst. And there's a line in the song too. It says, The air, the water, rent, the food we eat is filled with pestilence, accompanied by famine and death. It's no choice but to stay at home, examine yourself, which is a great call out to me because some of these things are things that people kind of run away from. And it's also, to me, a great shout out to the album's title, I think, and the theme of us facing ourselves, but constantly choosing to look at other things or ignore certain things or run away. Because don't get me started on the food. I stopped eating fast food like some ago, like years ago, and to see how much that costs still, and it's like ass quality, honestly, like food, it's still food, but it's just like, why am I paying for this when I have to question if the chicken's real? There's also the song The Last, which had similar themes to the song that came before, which is John Wayne. And I really like how Denzel does draw that line while still managing to add new perspectives to these things, especially when it comes to race and everything and diving into what that feels like and looks like. It just makes the entire experience feel really seamless. And I don't think there would ever be enough mentions of police brutality in music. And the song The Last is also slower, but I appreciate that instead of a heavier trap beat and vocals being used here. I think if this song was on Taboo, that would have been the thing. So that's why I appreciate like the sort of softness there is to it. It also makes it sound like we're in a conversation with Denzel rather than it being a performance, which isn't a bad thing when it does feel like this. Same thing with Angels. That song doesn't feel like a confession for sympathy. It just feels like processing. And there's a point that I felt where it's like a lot of rap albums describe pain to you, but I feel like this project just sits with it. There's also a lot of vulnerability here. I feel like the album doesn't try to sit there and impress you. There's no overly look at all the money I have. No offense to the last album and some of the tracks there, but it's very, let's look at what I have going on and let's sit down in that and let's deal with that. Let's not go into all of those things outside. There's a lot of slower tempos. There's a lot of minimal hooks. And it feels like we're overhearing thoughts and not watching a performance again. It's that feeling of community and we're here together and I'm talking through, everything that I have going on. And I feel Mental sits in this space. I love Mental, love the chorus, just love the atmosphere that song sets. And it feels really intimate to me. The bass line and the keys are super warm and it makes the words and the lyrics that take us out of the song feel very poignant. Such beautiful lyrics. I think this one sits behind Walkin' for me in terms of my favorites. And with another song like John Wayne, it sounds like Denzel is letting the silence exist in a space which kind of can be really rare in rap music. Healing is another theme in this album for me. This can be looked at as like healing with community. Thundercat is everything. Thundercat brings like this warmth to everything he does, from his solo projects to something like Yo Gabba Gabba. He just brings that warmth with him, and there's so much groove in everything he does and so much soul. T-Pain is very fun. I think he has he's just a fun dude, it seems like. I like seeing clips from his streams if he still does that. Speaking of, every time I see T-Pain, I think of the do something else meme from that one stream that he did talking about rappers and whatnot. That's a sound bite in my head. I think JID and Rico Nasty, when they both made their appearances in the album, they brought a lot of contrast without it being too overpowering and too much. But if we're talking about Ain't No Way, Denzel was still my favorite on that song, which is funny because I usually tend to have a bias towards JID, but Denzel was definitely still my favorite. Even if the energy takes a shift and it rises with the features that bring that energy, the album still, to me, never loses that emotional grounding. In terms of beats, though, I will say, walking aside, it's Sanjuro for me. It's one of my favorites too, and it's another song. Sounds fun, but it's kind of a dark track. Zatochi is definitely on that list too. The production is some of my favorite in that song. Oh my god. And it sounds like it belongs in a film. And it's another one where there's so many interesting things going on and Denzel is just riding along. He's got it, and the drum and bass chorus is just so different and exciting, and it makes me want to listen to it right now. The Ills is great as the last track. I love it. It's this sort of jazzy rap that's just so easy to hear and to sink deeply into. And the lyrics are crazy about how he's got all these demons and how he falls into those himself for a bit, but with Zeltron, he can climb out of that despite being in pain and maybe misunderstood along the way. I think the lyrics here are really, really, really good. But even then, with all of the fighting, he's still able to find that power within himself and find that light again, even if the darkness is still there. It sounds so relatable. I love it. I just love it. I do. Even building from the Ills, if you continue listening on, there's the cold-blooded soul versions of these songs, which feels like an emotional payoff. These versions of the songs, though, really reveal the album's true feelings and emotions and intentions. It gives me that MTV plugged sort of energy. And I love this. I love this type of stuff because it feels like you're right there, literally in the room. And I did take note of like Denzel's breath control and his presence and his restraint when that was needed. Very well done. I would have thrown something, I guess, to be in that room when he was recording the live versions of these songs because they just sound so elevated. And the live instruments gave each song that was chosen for the live performances just so much animation and color. I think Melt and Mental are examples of this, where the songs chosen really translated well into this style. And the guitars and horns on X-Wing, can we take a second? Because it sounded so good. Walkin' was so fun. Like, what the hell? Just so much fun regardless of what form that song's in. It's gonna be a good time. So these versions overall felt like closure instead of like bonus content that was just tacked on. And it felt like a reward for listening to the initial album, even though the whole entire thing, whether you're listening to the live versions or not, is just great. The album today, for me, still holds up. I can't even say still because it's not like I heard it when it first came out, but it really holds up well for me. I think Melt My Eyes reflects an emotional shift. I think this also signals that rap is moving towards safer emotional place just overall, especially with that blending of neo soul, which that genre in and of itself is known to be very intimate. Still, again, fits the moment without it being like a trend chasing album. It's very much appreciated when an artist in this sort of space takes what they want from a different genre, but they're still staying within what they know to be true of themselves, but they're also incorporating these things in an organic way. It offered a somewhat softer side to Denzel that I wasn't expecting, especially in terms of like production and his delivery. But he's still doubling down on the themes that were mentioned in Taboo even further. It's just the approach is a little bit different. And I'm happy about his growth into the sound, especially since I've heard like his heavier stuff already. Because I think like from this album and from what I've heard from him, just overall, he's got the potential to become one of my favorite rappers over time, the more I get into his stuff. So my favorites overall from the album were Walkin', but you already knew that. Mental, Ain't No Way, Sanjuro, Zatochi, The Ills. Then from the cold-blooded soul versions, we have Melt Session number 1, Walkin, Mental, and Chrome Hearts. But even if I have my favorites, the entire project is still amazing. Like I said before, it felt like a therapy session, but one that I didn't feel like I was like impeding on. Let me know what you thought about this album, even though I am late, but still, even if I'm late on an album, I like to talk about it on here because that's just my thing, you know, that's just what I do. But yeah, what's your favorite song from the album? What are your highlights? What's your favorite Denzel album, actually? Because I can't wait to listen to the rest. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Rain. Make sure you like the video, leave me a comment, and subscribe to my channel. And I will talk with all of you in the next video. Bye.